decision making process. Oh, there we go. Hopefully that's all good with everyone. And yeah, just a little backstory. So a few years ago, I had the joy and privilege of working with children and young people in Scotland as part of Scotland's Climate Assembly. And this was the first time a Citizens Assembly has so directly involved children and young people in its process. And so when this opportunity arose in last year to be part of the consortium that was designing and facilitating the assembly with children and young people in Ireland, I jumped at it. And so I've been working with the team at Dublin City University and also University College Cork. And most importantly, lots of amazing children and young people across Ireland, who I'm going to introduce some of you to now. So Fia, can I hand over to you?
Hi, my name's Fia. I'm 11 years old. I live in Cork, around Cormac Sherry. And I would now like to invite everybody here today to use the chat to tell us your first name, whereabouts you're living, and an optional emoji to show how you're feeling. Now I'll pass on to my fellow young advisor, Elsie.
Hi, I'm Elsie. I'm 9 years old and I live in Kilcash near Clonmel, County Tipperary. Yeah.
And Elsie, I would say that you're our emoji queen. You are a big fan of emojis, and when we have Zoom calls, we actively use them, and we also love using the chat function. So please, please, please get involved and send us lots of messages throughout the session. Thanks so much, Elsie. Oisin, over to you.
Hi, I'm Oisin and I'm 13 and I live in Galway, and I was an assembly member, and now I'll pass on to Ailey.
Hi, my name is Ailey and I live in County Kildare in Naas. I'm 8 years old and now I'll pass on to Fia, I think.
Hi, I'm Fia. I'm 8 years old. I'm from Cork and I was a member of the Children and Young People's Assembly.
Thanks, Fia. And I don't know if you're all seeing the chat, but we've got people coming, like dialed in from Canada. That's amazing, as well as all over Ireland. So we've got some new friends from further afield, which is exciting. We are obviously going to be having a conversation tonight about the experiences that the children and young people had as being part of the assembly. But before that, we wanted to actually have an attempt to bring you all into the assembly with us. But we have a short film that captures the 2 weekends that we spent together last year for the assembly. And so we're going to hand over to our wonderful colleague who's going to play the film, and we really hope you enjoy this. And yes, it's lovely to see you all dialed in from so far. So thank you all again for joining.
Sorry, Katie, was that for me or Dermot to share?
Okay. That would be yourself, Claire. We can do a quick test run if necessary.
Okay. Don't have the link at the moment, sorry.
But I actually have it on my screen here, and I now do have sharing rights, so I can share it if that.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem. So Katie or Claire, once this starts, can you maybe just send me a message to let me know that it's working okay?
In September 2022, 35 children and young people aged 7 to 17 from across Ireland were randomly selected to be members of Ireland's first Children and Young People's Assembly on Biodiversity Loss. We are some of the children and young people who were chosen, and we're excited to tell you about what happened next. We spent 2 weekends together, one in beautiful County Wicklow and our second weekend in Killarney National Park in County Kerry. We spent our first weekend learning about biodiversity and the causes of biodiversity loss. We had a lot of fun playing games, getting creative, and spending time outside, exploring a local nature reserve, which we really loved. We spent our second weekend working together to come up with our vision for the future and our calls to action, which we are excited to share with you.
Our Assembly's vision is an Ireland where we are connected to and care for the rights of nature and each other, so that biodiversity is restored and protected, and we live and grow up in healthy, clean and fair environments.
We also created 6 key messages that we want everyone to know.
We must treat the earth like a member of the family or a close friend.
Future generations must live in a world where there isn't a biodiversity crisis and where children don't have to take action because of the inaction of past generations.
Every decision must take biodiversity into account.
Children and young people must be included in decisions being made about biodiversity.
Biodiversity protection must be a shared responsibility and a global collaborative effort.
We must consume resources in a sustainable, moderate way that neither diminishes the environment, biodiversity, or our rights, well-being, and livelihoods.
We also created 58 calls to action, which fall under 7 key themes.
To provide education for children, young people, and adults that helps them to understand biodiversity loss, the consequences of our actions, and the things that we can do to address this issue.
To put biodiversity and the rights of nature at the heart of decisions that we make.
To create energy and transport systems which limit our impact on the environment and biodiversity.
To limit the impact of things we buy and use on the environment and biodiversity, and support sustainable ways of living.
To restore and rewild environments which support our biodiversity, including urban and rural places, and develop national parks.
To protect our habitats and native species from the impact of invasive species and land use change.
To address biodiversity loss caused by over-exploitation. To make sure places where we grow and gather our food are places where biodiversity can thrive, and the people who work in these places are helped to tackle biodiversity loss.
Minister Malcolm Noonan joined us at the end of our second weekend to receive our calls to action. He promised that our recommendations will inform Ireland's policies on biodiversity loss.
I'm here today to meet with the children and young people who are involved in the Assembly. It was something that at the outset, when the Citizens' Assembly was being developed for biodiversity, I felt it vitally important that young people had a voice, and not just a voice, but a meaningful voice. The UN Charter for the Rights of Children states that we must include the voices of children and young people. That's a fundamental right. But secondly, it must be done in a way that is meaningful. It can't be tokenistic. We can't be ticking boxes and say we have consulted with young people. They need to have their voices included, and the outputs of any work that we do on national policy or local policy must reflect those voices. And I think that's what's being done here today and over the last number of weeks with the Children and Young People's Assembly. And by doing that, we take on board those testimonials and capture exactly the way young people are feeling.
Our final day also gave us all a chance to reflect on and celebrate our time together as an Assembly, and share our hopes for the future.
Assembly was about biodiversity loss, and I really enjoyed it. It was so much fun, and I made tons of new friends, and it was just it was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's just so nice. You'll never meet a nicer group of people, honestly. Over 4 days, you know, we're already planning on hanging out outside the assembly itself, meeting up, you know, people from all around the island, and we just, you know, we just mesh so well.
The event was really just like the best opportunity for young people to gather together and express their views and opinions on biodiversity loss and climate change. And I'm really hoping that Minister Malcolm Noonan will go off with this information and really like propose it to the rest of the government, and hopefully we can see some changes in the near future. I really liked coming up with the calls of action. I thought that it felt really like we were doing something, and it felt really useful. But I also loved all, obviously, the bits in between. Met loads of nice people, made some good friends, and it was just a really good experience overall.
I hope they actually take our ideas into account and make them the law, so it's actually used and not forgotten.
Our assembly might be over, but really, this is just the beginning.
Next step is, I suppose, we're going to take what we learned and disperse it however we can, whether that's through the media or through school. Just spread our knowledge and educate more people about what we've learned and get more people on board.
The next step is getting listened to. So essentially what we need to do is make sure that we are heard and the young people of the assembly are actually taken into account, and our ideas are put through and you know, embedded in a policy. So that is essentially the next step, yeah.
You're on mute.
It was 2 years of online Zoom calls, and I still can't find the unmute button. But yeah, I've seen that film, oh gosh, so many times, that every time it just brings me so much happiness. It was such a special time altogether. So I'm really excited to get to dive into what it was like for the young people and the children that are here tonight. Ailey, Thea, Elsie, Oisin, do you want to pop off mute and we can dive in? Does that sound okay? Okay, magic. So something that really stood out for me in the film and has kind of stayed with me since we were all together for the assembly was one of the key messages that you, as the assembly members supported by the young advisors, came up with was that children and young people must be included in decisions being made about biodiversity. So I wondered, maybe to start us off tonight, if you would like to tell all of us here a little bit about why you think it is so important for children and young people to be involved in decisions being made about biodiversity. And I wondered if perhaps, yeah, maybe Oisin, you could start us off.
Yeah, so I think this is important for children and young people to be included in decisions because of the fact that we have new ideas. We're not as influenced as adults are towards present ideas. So I think we might also be, some of us might be a bit more creative anyway, and we might be able to I just think we'd be able to come up with like sometimes better, but definitely unique ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. And we certainly saw that across the assembly. I think we were all blown away by the creativity and imagination that you all brought to the calls to action. And yeah, I wondered perhaps, Ailey, maybe you might also like to answer that one. Why do you think it's important?
Well, I think children have rights to speak about their ideas.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, kind of the same as Oisin as well.
Yeah, brilliant. I think, yeah, you've always been a very strong advocate and speaker for children's rights to have a say in decisions being made. So I'm really glad that we had you as part of the assembly to help others understand what that can look like. Thanks, Ailey. And Fia, you were one of the young advisors, so you were actually part of the team, along with myself and Dermot and other members of the adults, if you like, and the project team that are here tonight. You worked with us to design and facilitate the assembly. So what about for you? Why do you think it's really important that children should be involved also in the design of these processes?
Well, we should be involved in the process because not only do we have like unique voices and creative ideas, this is also our future, and a lot of the people who are currently making the decisions won't like really see the impacts it has, and the largest parts of climate change, but the kids will. Like, we're all gonna see all the impacts and everything that the new laws and climate change does.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you and Elsie here. Elsie's also one of the young advisors that were part of the team. So we had 9 in total, didn't we? Yeah, there was 9 young advisors. And so we brought you into this process early on before the assembly was underway. And we worked together. I was actually thinking about it today. We've worked together for a year now. It was this time last year that we were all coming together for the first time, I know. Think about everything that's happened since. So Elsie, I'm going to ask you, why did you want to be in the advisory team and join us in the designing of the assembly?
I've always had a passion in nature, and I think it helps that where I'm growing up and grew up in is near forests.
I can hear yours.
I think. Pardon?
Are you all right, Thea? Is everything okay? Perfect.
I think it helped that I grew up in an area near the mountains and near the forest. And yes, I wanted to be included in something about it.
And between you and Thea, I don't know, do one of you want to maybe tell us a little bit about what your role was in designing the assembly and some of the things that you did? Yeah, Thea, go for it.
Well, like the adults, like they helped a lot, and they like were always guiding us along the way. But like they couldn't really like affect the final outcome too much, because it's like it has to be our assembly. It has to be like what comes out of us and our thoughts. But on the advisory team, we were trying to make it like the most comfortable and easy situation and assembly for the young children. And over all of our Zoom meetings, I think we really did a lot of planning and corresponding and brainstorming with each other. And I think personally, I was quite proud of the assembly in the end.
Yeah, I think it's funny, I think, just thinking what everything that happened in that year and how it went from just, as you say, those brainstorming sessions on Zoom calls, and we all got to know each other through Zoom, and we did have that residential where we came together in person, which was a lot of fun, just to kind of prepare each other, help each other also become facilitators, and we all helped each other co-facilitating at the actual assembly, which is brilliant. I'm curious then, so as we then had the recruitment for assembly members, and this was a little bit different, thinking about how we would randomly select children and young people from across Ireland. And so we had this kind of pool, if you like, where we invited children to put their names in the hat, and then we used a sampling system so that we could pull out a mini Ireland from all of the children that had put their names in the pot. And so those are assembly members. So that's Oisin, Thea, and Ailey. I'm really curious to know, like, what it was like when you got randomly selected, like how that felt when you got the email. And I wonder, Thea, do you want to say a little bit about what that was like for you when you found out that you were going to be an assembly member? Because I think you were the youngest assembly member as well. What was it like?
It was exciting, very exciting, but it was also like out of nowhere since it was random. So that's probably what was so exciting.
because it was just out of nowhere. It was a bit like, I felt a bit kind of like nervous because I didn't know all new people, because I didn't know it was even going to happen there. So, but it was mostly just exciting.
But it's so true that everyone came together and hadn't met each other for the first time. And then there was like the 2 assembly weekends, one in County Wicklow and then one in County Kerry. And yeah, everyone just came together and we had different activities and different things that brought everyone together. And so I guess that makes me think of it'd be really good to hear what your favorite moment or your sparkling moment. What was the best thing about the assembly for each of you? And I'll ask each of you this one. Perhaps Ailey, would you like to start us off? I know you've got your hand up. Do you want to go first? What was your favorite moment?
Well, probably we did a nature walk, and that was really fun. And we got to have like some sheets and like go on a hunt, and we'd have to like find, and stuff. We have to find like nature. And then we're talking about what types of trees there were, like oak and birch and all these trees. And yeah, that was my sparkling moment, going to the woods.
Amazing. Yeah, that was definitely a highlight for me as well. And what about for you, Elsie? What was your sparkling moment?
Well, I had many sparkling moments, but like Ailey, one of the best was the walk in the woods and the treasure hunt that we used trying to find things. I don't think I got too many on the list, but it was very fun, and that was my sparkling moment.
I remember you and Fia and Ailey working very closely together. We've got some lovely photos of the 3 of you pottering about in the woods, so I'm sure you got more than you think. And you definitely helped the others out. I know that for sure, Elsie. Fia, what about you? What was your sparkling moment?
Same with Elsie. I had a loss, but I have to say with the walk in the woods and maybe the nature walk. The nature walk and the scavenger hunt.
I think everyone planning on running an assembly in the future has to involve a nature walk by the sense of things. It seems like that's a very important part of the process. So thanks, Fia. And Oisin, what about for you? What was your highlight?
So my highlight was designing and presenting the calls to action to Malcolm and Noonan, because I just felt it was nice to have our voices heard.
Yeah, do you want to tell us a bit more about that? Because that was a really significant part of the process. Maybe describe to us here what actually happened that day and maybe even how you developed the calls to action. I think that'd be really interesting for people to get a bit of a window into what that looked like.
So we worked together as teams on our calls to action. So we discussed all the issues we thought was important. So we just laid them all out on bits of paper, decide what we liked and didn't like, and then eventually we just came up with all of our calls to action.
Absolutely, and it was amazing because and this might be interesting for those of you here tonight to understand. So because we had the 35 assembly members, and if we think about the topic of biodiversity loss, it is humongous. So in order for the assembly members to be learning and then deliberating and discussing their calls to action, the young people and children were split up into 5 different themes. So they all went down a different theme group, didn't they? And so Fia, do you remember what theme group you were in? Do you remember what you were off the top of your head? It's been a wee while, so putting you on the spot. Have a think about it. I think Ailey was in pollution, weren't you? Yeah, so you were looking at pollution with your group, and Oisin, I think you were climate change, if I remember rightly.
Yeah.
Yeah, Elsie, what group were you helping out? Because you were one of the facilitators of one of the themes. Do you remember which one you were with?
I remember I was with Fia in habitat loss.
Habitat loss, yeah.
Habitat loss. And we looked at videos of overfishing and we looked at pictures of habitats and which ones would be better for different animals, I remember.
Fantastic, fantastic. And Thea, what about for you? What group were you helping out with? Do you remember? Sorry, that was Thea.
Fiach or Fiach?
Thea. You.
Okay. I was in the pollution group. I remember probably one of my favorite moments in that was we did a discussion where each person got like a card where it said like maybe they were a farmer or like they were a student in the local school, and then they gave us a scenario which I think was they wanted to like block up the river to build an extension onto the local school, and we had like a discussion with all like the different people considering their like view on it with their characters, and it was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that activity too, and seeing how, you know, we were thinking about different perspectives, right? And getting everyone to put themselves in the shoes of different people that might be impacted by different policies or some like ideas that were being put into place. And it was brilliant seeing everyone really get into character and try and imagine what that would be like for people from different backgrounds or with different professions. So yeah, Fiach, I'm really glad you brought that up. It was a really interesting activity. Elsie, you put your hand up. Do you want to add something?
I think I remember doing that as well. So maybe with Fiat, and I remember doing it with probably a Fiach and Ailey who were in the pollution. That one, I think it was the scenario was they wanted to do something with the river to make a new playground. It was quite fun seeing what everyone thought, even if we were just role playing of the scenario.
Yeah, brilliant. I'm going to come back to Fiach. I haven't heard your sparkling moment from the assembly. What was your sparkling moment?
I think it was probably when like we were in our groups and we were just creating our final calls to action. It was like I felt pretty like it was the final stage, and this was like the thing that was going to get broadcasted and heard, and like that everybody was going to consider.
Yeah, absolutely. There was the energy. I wish everyone here could have been there to just witness the energy in that room and outside as well. I know some of you were working in your groups outside because we had remarkably warm weather for October. So we were quite fortunate in that we managed to get out and about a lot. And I think that really does touch on something, you know, all of the things that you mentioned there, from the nature walk to, you know, Fiach, you talking about developing the calls to action, to the role play activities, and even just all the kind of arts and crafts and creative parts in between, like with the mural, that was definitely one of my highlights. The ways that you all learned and yeah, discussed the different topics were so different. You know, there was so much movement and indoor outdoor activity. It was really exciting to see how everyone went on these learning journeys and using so many different methods and tools and games. It was yeah, it was really brilliant, and so much of that is also a testament to the young advisors that we had that came up with so many of these activities as well. So you really helped all of us in the project team communicate the evidence and the ideas to the other children and young people in really fun ways. And it was well, I think it was a lot of fun. I hope I wasn't the only one. But it definitely was interesting to see how, yeah, this knowledge about biodiversity loss could be communicated in so many different ways. And so I'm really glad that you've all kind of touched on that tonight. One big thing that's been mentioned a few times I'd love to dive into are the calls to action. I know that this is obviously the thing, as Fiach has said, everyone was working towards. And in total, there were 58, which is incredible. And so I wanted to ask if some of you would like to share perhaps what some of your favorite calls to action were. Or are. They're very much living calls to action with plenty of work still to be done. Elsie, why don't you start us off?
Oh, there. I thought I was gone for a sec. My favorite call to action, well, one of them, was making new forests. So every time a person is born, a tree is planted. That way we can get the number of forestation in our country and join it and tie it along with the population. And I remember my dad told me once that even though here in Ireland we used to have loads and loads of forests, and we still do, we are one of the least we have the least amount of forests in one of the least amounts of forests in Europe, which I thought was unbelievable. Since before Homo sapiens got here, there was it was only forests. There was hardly anything but forests. And why is because many native species also live in forests. That's why it's a good idea to do it for me.
Yeah. Elsie, thank you so much. And I think you present the case for that so well. And what a beautiful idea as well. I don't know, just the thought of everybody in Ireland having a tree that was, in their name on their birthday. I think that's such a special idea. And a lovely way to help people connect with nature as well.
Yes. And I know my childminder, she has a tree planted in her garden for her daughter, which I thought was nice.
Hello, sorry, you got cut off.
Sorry there. And Odin, you had your hand up.
Yeah, so my favorite calls to action were the ones about educating people about biodiversity loss, because it's not really something that's going to just disappear overnight. So I think people need to be educated on how to slow it down.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're you and some of the other children here tonight are involved in a follow-up project to the assembly, which is really exciting, which is all about developing resources about biodiversity for the children and young people. Do you want to say a little bit about being involved in that new project and what you hope to get out of it?
Yeah, so in the project we're trying to design a workbook for children and for schools to use to teach people about biodiversity loss. So we're currently discussing all the topics and stuff we want to put into it, and then we're going to meet up then in a few months just to finish putting it together.
Magic. Thanks, Oisin. Fia, you had your hand up next. And keeping track of all the hands is lots to say.
Well, I think my favorite has got call to action was probably number 7. It was all decisions must take biodiversity into account in every way. I think that this one was really important because right now a lot of our decisions are made around profit and money and the actual quality of the goods instead of if it's good or it's bad, and if it's affecting biodiversity in any way. A lot of people would just think that they'll order off the huge company because it's got fast deliveries and everything's cheap, even though they're burning so much more fossil fuels and making a way bigger impact than if you were to buy local and organic.
Dave, thanks so much for sharing, and that also kind of speaks to some of your key messages as well about being really mindful of how we use resources, and also of course the decision-making process being really inclusive of everyone. So thank you, that was brilliant. I'm going to hand over to Ailey and then come to Fia after.
My favorite call to action is also, I think it was a key message. It was treat Earth like a person. Because imagine if there's just a person and then you just threw all this bad stuff on this person. And then when you knew that this person was sick, you're just like, oh yeah, sick. Let's just do it some more.
Yeah, I mean, that's perfect analogy for it. You're absolutely right. And I think that message came out so strongly from so many of you involved in the assembly. So thank you so much, Ailey. And Fia, what about for you?
My favorite message was number 34, restore and reintroduce native species, including trees, plants, flowers, and predators like wolves, because we need more animals and more types of trees that we already have. I don't know why we took them away. We already had them. It's just like you get something you really like or you don't, and then someone just takes it away from you without even saying anything, just takes it away and leaves.
And I know that there's a passion project of, I know you and some of the friends that you met and made at the assembly to be part of the action and reintroducing some of these native species. And I know that there's a certain wolf mission amongst some of you here, which I know there will perhaps be other people on the call here that are also very excited about the possibility of wolf reintroduction. So that's brilliant. Ailey, you've got your hand up. Is that a new hand, old hand? Okay, not to worry. Brilliant. Well, we're going to very soon open up this conversation to answer questions from those of you that have joined us this evening. We have a chat open, so please do, if you want to take a few minutes just to think if you have a question that you'd like to ask, please do write it in the chat, and then if you would like to, I'll ask you to just come and say out loud, but equally I can just read them from the chat there. So whilst I ask just one more question here, please do jot your ideas down in the chat. But okay, so actually, okay, maybe I've got two questions. The first one I wanted to ask was, first of all, you know, it's been 6 months since we were all together for that final assembly weekend. Just launched the report recently, which had all the calls to action. I know Dermot's put the link in the chat, so for those of you that haven't seen the report, please do go and have a read. But in those 6 months, I'm really curious to know what life's has been like for you. If the assembly has changed anything for you, maybe at home or in your school or your community. Perhaps, yeah, what have you noticed, or has anything changed for you over the last 6 months? What have you taken away from being in the assembly? Would anyone like to take that one? Yeah, Oisin, go for it.
Yeah, I've definitely been more aware of the issue since I went to the assembly. Like before, you'd barely hear about biodiversity loss. It was all climate change, global warming. There's no mention of biodiversity loss at all. So I think it's very unmentioned compared to the other two, even though it's just as big of an issue as them. So I've definitely been more aware of that as an issue since I left.
Thanks, Oisin. That's brilliant. And I'm wondering, like, from all of you as well, like, what do you hope happens next? Now that your calls to action are out there in the world, what do you hope happens next? Yeah, Fia.
Well, I really hope that they actually get heard and they're brought into account in a lot of governmental decisions about biodiversity loss. And I feel that we'll have accomplished something as long as it doesn't get ignored and it contributes and maybe even helps for a lot or a few decisions.
Yeah, thanks, Fia. Brilliant. Elsie, what do you hope happens now, or what are your hopes for the future?
I hope that our decisions will be put into law and acted on, so most of them will become true, like people will obey them.
Thanks, Elsie. And Fia, you had your hands up there.
the same of some of Elsie's. I hope our calls to action just come true. I hope that what they say in the actions just become true and it doesn't just get forgotten after about like 2 minutes.
Yeah, these are incredibly powerful messages for all of us to take away. And Ailey, for you?
I think, oh no, it just popped out of my head.
Don't worry, that always happens to me as well. You're absolutely fine. If it comes back, you can let us know. Brilliant. Well, we've got a really, a great question in the chat from Kathy. And I don't know, Kathy, do you want to maybe come and say hello and speak your question yourself? If not, I'm happy to read it out. But if you'd like to say, please, by all means, you can come off mute.
Yes, I will come and say hello. I'm so impressed with these young people, and you are our hope for the future. And it's really important that you have your say. Really, really important. I agree with you. So I was just really interested to know that when you were coming up with your recommendations, did you just think about the things that you liked and disliked best? Or did you think about what would have the most impact, the most effect? Because sometimes it's easy just to decide, oh, well, I like that better than that. But you also, did you think about what effect it was going to have, which was going to have the most effect?
Thanks so much, Kathy. And where are you dialed in from, Kathy?
I'm from London.
Lovely.
And I'm probably the oldest person on this call. So, but yeah.
all generations together. Oisin, you wanted to take that one.
Yeah, I'll take that one. Yeah. So just to answer the question, we definitely didn't just, it wasn't just entirely dislike and likes. It was we were considering what would have the best impact on reducing the issue. So yeah, we weren't just keeping in mind what we liked and disliked. We were trying to figure out what was most effective and would do the best to stop the issue.
Brilliant.
Brilliant. And Thea, do you want to add something to that?
I think like during the second assembly, we put a lot of like effort and energy into making calls to action, and I think that we really put a lot of time to each one and what effect it would make, if the effects would make an impact, and if it would really be followed, and then like we would like decide if it's really like it was worth mentioning.
Brilliant. Thanks, Thea. I don't know if any of the others would like to answer Kathy's question. Otherwise, I'd love to read this comment, and perhaps even Keith would like to say a couple of words. So I know Keith's been dropping a few messages in the chat about the parents that were also a big part of this process, the parents and carers that came along on the assembly journey with you all and with us all. As when we were hosting the 2 assembly weekends, parents and families were invited to come along so that they could obviously stay with us for the weekend. And they weren't actually in the assembly, and they were off doing their own things during the day, but we'd come together in the evenings and they would hear, I'm sure, from all of you stories of what was going on. And we have been really struck by just how much not only has the assembly impacted the children and young people directly, but also the families and the parents and the carers of everyone that was involved, and also even some of your schools and communities. It's been amazing to see that kind of ripple effect. And so Keith, thanks for your comment in the chat. I know you've been saying that County Wicklow, like the community, schools, libraries, the tidy towns groups and councillors, everyone's really paying attention to your calls to action and are so proud of the work that the children and young people have done. So thanks so much, Keith. I really appreciate that. Amazing. Okay, let's just have a quick scan through the chat. Okay, so, oh yeah, brilliant to see some of the actions that people are taking themselves. So I think Jason's saying that is volunteering with the Longford Tidy Towns and has secured money to add some trees to the town. So Elsie, maybe that's the tree planting call to action coming to life, which is exciting. And here's the question here, which yeah, it would be great to hear your thoughts on this one. So have any of you started making a new project at home, like growing plants or making a bug hotel? I don't know. Ailey, you've got your hand up.
A couple of years ago, we made a bug hotel. No bugs stayed in it. All I could, well, except spiders, but I won't say they're bugs. And then there's just some logs, just a big pile of logs. And then when I looked in there, and if I took a log off for my dog to chew, then I just see all these woodlice and bugs and all these different types of bugs. And it's just like, why do they live in here instead of there?
Well, it sounds like you've been very busy, Ailey, which is brilliant. And I think Fia, you also had your hand up. Is there any projects that you've been doing since the assembly?
Well, we just kind of started the project, but we had completely overgrown grass, and it was kind of full with grass and weeds, and like there wasn't really any flowering plants. So we had to chop down most of it, but now we're going to fill it in with like a lot of vegetable beds and a good few wild patches, as well as a polytunnel for growing some of our own food. Be nice and fresh.
Amazing. You're gonna have to keep me posted on how that goes. It sounds brilliant. Elsie, one more for you, and then we've got 2 more questions in the chat, and then we'll wrap things up there. Go for it, Elsie.
Before the assembly, actually, we have like a birdhouse in one of the trees up there, a yellow birdhouse. I'm not sure if any birds have ever stayed in it though. And most spring or summer, we would put up like a bird feeder. Winter, autumn or winter, and by the time, if we were away for the weekend or something, usually by the time we come back, it was almost all gone because the birds had eaten it all. But I haven't really made anything since the assembly till now.
Well, the warmer months are ahead of us, so maybe there'll be some time over the summer to get out and about for sure. I've got 2 final questions. This one here, so with a caveat, so it may be early, but has this experience inspired you to a particular field of work, or maybe a job or a career in brackets, certainly brilliant future? Yeah, Fia.
Well, it wasn't like after the assembly, but I remember like always being very interested in biodiversity and kind of wanting to work in that field since I was like very young. But then after the assembly, I really felt like I was much more passionate and wanted to get involved a lot more and like expand my knowledge a lot.
Amazing.
I think.
Brilliant. Thanks, Fia. And Oisin, what about yourself?
Yeah, maybe something like ecology, because just this year I entered the SciFest with the biodiversity themed project. So I was doing maybe heat, water, how much CO2 does it release, and how it affects like animals and all that live in it, that live in the water.
Fantastic. Oh, it's amazing to see what already is coming out of your experiences being in the assembly. And I know that for a fact, the world is a very safe hands, having all of you that have brought such compassion and such knowledge and ideas and creativity to this process. It brings me a lot of hope. I know others have shared that in the chat as well. It's brilliant to learn so much from you as well. And And one final question here. And then I've got, I think actually, Elsie, I think you have a task for everyone here, or perhaps between you to round off today. But Kathy asked another question in the chat, which I also wanted to touch upon to bring our session to a close. So are you going to have any opportunities, or are you hoping to connect with politicians again about your recommendations or your calls to action? What are your hopes for them? Are you hoping to interact with them more, or what do you think might come up in the next few months? Yeah.
I think it was a while back. I kind of like attempted to write a letter to the president, but it didn't go very well. I got through like a few lines and then kind of got stumped.
Well, I think between us all, we can all maybe help you out and make it a group effort. Perhaps that's, yeah, like lots of nodding heads. Maybe that can be something we do together afterwards. And Oisin, what about you?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind doing a follow-up there, with just with one or two of the ministers, just to see how they're getting on with, see what they're enacting with their calls to action.
Brilliant. And without giving too much away, there are definitely some concrete plans in the pipeline for that follow-up, because that's so important when it comes to these processes, is making sure that there continues to be that feedback to all of you that were involved, but also to make sure that the people that have the power and can make decisions are being held accountable. So we will definitely be continuing to work with all of the Assembly members and keeping in contact so that we can put these plans into place. We're coming to the end of this really special conversation. It's, again, honestly, it's just been such a pleasure getting to speak with Elsie, Ailey, Fia and Oisin tonight, and I'm sure from what I can see in the chat, everyone's been really enjoying hearing from all of you, and you've all shared so much insight into what the Assembly was like. To finish off, when we were thinking about what we wanted to say and how we wanted to use this time, we were thinking, how could we round off this session in a really nice way? And so I think it was you, Fia, perhaps, who said waterfall. Yeah, and so I think we might still do the waterfall. So whilst I'm going to ask each of the children and young people to think about your final key message to share with everyone. And whilst you're doing that, we'd like everyone to do a short comment in the chat. So who would like to explain the waterfall to everyone here? Okay, Elsie, if you can help me out, that would be brilliant.
So waterfall is where you put in either your favorite emoji or how you're feeling into the chat, but we all do it at the exact same time when Katie counts down, so every emoji just falls down at the exact same time in the chat.
Amazing. So yeah, so you're all going to type, but don't press send until we say. So yeah, either emoji, or what was the other thing, Elsie? Just how you're feeling about the session?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. So everyone take I don't know, a minute or so just to write some reflections or leave a message. And whilst you do that, please don't press send. We will all press send at the same time when we give you the green light. But in the meantime, I'd like each of our Assembly members and young advisors just to say your final key message or your parting words to everyone here tonight. Ailey, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, I think it was a key message. I already said it earlier on. Treat yourself like a person.
Thanks, Ailey. And Fia?
Yeah. This was also a key message, but I think that you should always take biodiversity into account. Because like whenever you find yourself going for the easier option or the cheaper option, you always have to consider, well, maybe this is only cheaper and easier because it's doing like a very bad thing for the environment and it's affecting it very badly.
And Oisin?
Yeah, I just think that we need to take every action, similar to BIOC, to take every action we do, just to consider how it will impact biodiversity. As I said earlier, it's not going to go away, so we just need to, it's not going to go away in the short term anyway, so we just need to make sure we try to slow it down so we can eventually stop it.
Thanks so much, Oisin. Elsie?
And I would say rewilding our country and lots of the other ones that people already said, like treat the earth like a planet, always take biodiversity into account, and more education on biodiversity loss in schools and other places.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Elsie. And Thea, what's your key message, or what would you like to share?
It's kind of like Ailey's, but treat Earth like your most prized possession. If it's dirty, try and clean it. And try not to lose track of if it's dirty or clean.
Powerful, powerful messages. Thank you all so much. And so I guess this brings us to hear what everyone else's key messages are, or how they're feeling by pressing go for our watchable. So we'll count down from 3, and then I don't know, maybe you can all help me, and then we'll see all the messages pouring in. Okay, who's going to start us off? Are we ready? 3, 2, 1. Everyone can press the end. Wow, that's so nice. So lovely to see all these comments. Thank you. And that brings us to the end of our conversation tonight. Thank you all so much for joining. It's been a real pleasure having you here, and please do keep in touch. The report is at the website. We have social media at CYP Biodiversity, so please do follow us, talk to us, and keep in touch. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your evening. And a huge thank you, of course, to Oisin, Elsie, Thea, and Ailey for sharing all of your wisdom with us. It's been such a treat. Bye, everyone.